You're watching from the gym? Good. Let's get your reps in for articles. Microsoft is a black hole of money and talent. Before starting, I think we need some context about my current situation. I am a web dev who has been asked to help another department at our company with some of their problems. When I accepted this position, I was not informed about their situation or why my help was needed. But I was asked very nicely and frankly speaking, working on another bullshit React project bored me deeply. Before joining them, I learned what they work on, Microsoft Dynamic ERP. I believe this information was withheld from me until the last possible moment with full knowledge of the hissy fit I would throw when finding out I'm working on a Microsoft product. I mean, hey, can we all be real here for just a second? Can we all be real here just for 1 second? This is not React's fault. This is the unromantic life of a web dev, okay? When you're just thrown together, React, CRUD, app, you go to your Node.js, you go, app.get/new, whatever, path matching. Okay, go to database. Okay, go get this with this query params. Okay, go to the front end. Okay, make Flexbox or grid layout. Let's go, Tailwind. What is it again? Go to Tailwind's website. Okay, it's Flex. Okay, yep, okay, with W-full, okay, here we go, right? You're just digital plumbing. When you're not building an actual product, I think it really doesn't matter on the framework. It's all going to be boring, right? It's just all going to be a little bit painful. I did that for a while, and it's just hard. I think sometimes React gets a bad rap for the wrong reason. I think the right reason does exist, but that's not the right reason. I think that you can make that into anything, right? Like imagine if you were a hardware developer and all you did was do the initial memory layout, right? You just did the first memory layout. You're just constantly working in the map world of the memory. You just are like, all right, new device up. All right, first 1,000 kilobytes goes to here. Next 1,000 kilobytes goes to here. Next 1,000 kilobytes goes to here. Okay, we're starting up a new project. All right, I'm going to start up it's just like you're constantly doing the same thing over and over again. It really doesn't matter what it is. It will be boring. Like imagine being the video game tester that has to just walk into walls all day, testing geometry. You know what I mean? Like that ain't that fun. Oh God, it's bad. Before moving to this department, I was not really aware of ERP space. What is ERP? I just heard this term. What does ERP stand for again? Exotic role play, enterprise React server component planning, enterprise resource planning. There's another version of ERP that also exists that's not that. Okay, whatever. Whatever. Because it's one of the worst fields to ever exist. I often find these type of products, they tend to at least have some level of complicated programming that makes it more fun. Just hear me out here. I worked on tax software at Web Filings, okay? I didn't even mean to make this all collide. And I actually had a lot of fun doing it. I'd say it was the most pivotal role of my life, the most challenging role of my life. Scripted. I know. Hashtag ad. Anyway, I'm just saying, sometimes these products can be a lot of fun to work on, but you have to get past the shit, okay? Because that always exists in every product. It's just years of people's good ideas slowly becoming worse over time. I enjoy building ERP products. I'm sure there's a lot of fun stuff about it, yeah. ERP somehow managed to straddle the line between overly complicated messes that have to mold around the needs of every company in the world and some of the dullest, most boring work environments that can ever exist. Fair and factual. Just so you know, I'm not making it up. The most common task we receive is something along the lines of, we need this column in this page urgent. Why is having another column an urgent task? What do the numbers they just asked for mean? These questions will be left unanswered. But let's go back to the steaming pile of garbage Microsoft managed to create. This is sounding good. Is Java dead in 2024? No. Probably because it was developed sometime around 2015. Yep. When Microsoft drank the cloud Kool-Aid, they decided the best way to host some of the most sensitive company information that their clients can ever have is in Azure. First off, just to be completely fair, the cloud Kool-Aid is an expensive drink, okay? This thing's coming out. Dude, this is top shelf whiskey, okay? You're doing some sort of Sazerac or you're doing some sort of allocated whiskey drink here because cloud's the only thing that's making money these days. Like you go and you look up Amazon income breakdown. Let's see if they have it on here. Look at that. Operating income, AWS. Crazy, right? It's a huge percentage. 6% comes from international, 33% comes from North America. This is such a huge huge, delicious pie of money. The importance of understanding margins. Yes, that's because it's ridiculous, but at the same time, it makes sense. Yeah, even though it only comes with 17% of actual, what is this, revenue, it's pretty good. They make like $20 billion a quarter, and they just like, oh yeah, it's the best, right? They get to charge people for being stupid. They get to charge people for being smart. Get this. Amazon created a product that they could make a shitty UI for, but the product good enough that entire cottage industries of sub-products will be built on top of them, in which they still make their money. Amazon created such a bad UI, they got somebody else to create the UI for them. It's one of the most incredible feats of social manipulation I have ever seen in my entire lifetime. Imagine being able to create a $20 billion product that you get somebody else to create your UI for. Wow. This is just incredible. So that's why I think this makes perfect sense, by the way. You should just move it. I mean, I think the cloud generally is a pretty good place for a lot of stuff. And remember, Azure is Microsoft self-hosting, right? This is Microsoft self-hosting its own product. It's incredible, right? This is good. Right? Behind the wall of server-side rendering web app using a custom language they developed in-house. Now that's where shit. See, this is where you go wrong. You know, I guarantee this started out as a DSL. Oh, we just need a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and we want to display this. It'll just like compile down. It'll be super duper easy. That's all it started off as. And then somebody's like, yeah, but I got to add one to something, and they're like, hold my beer. We got ERP laying coming in hot. You know that's what happened. It always starts off as a DSL, and then somebody asked to add one, and somebody else asked for error handling. And right then and there, you got yourself a language. Every single time. Microsoft Diesel, every single time. Every single time. Just for this, and only this platform. Now, if you look at how much money Microsoft is making, you would believe they have some of the most competent developers behind this project, and Dynamics is the peak of web development. That is true. If you look at their marketing, that is. Smiley face. Their reference and marketing material is some of the nicest looking and fastest loading websites I personally know of. But, like Venus Flytrap, this is but the bait that lures in some bored, stupid consultant that will, like in a trance, suggest you move all your dear, precious information to Microsoft Cloud, where it will be trapped forever, chaining you forever to this rotting corpse of a company. Damn, son, that's crazy. Why am I this mean? Let's add the capability to do expressions in this config file. Yeah, no, pick. That's what it is. That's genuinely what it is. Every single time we started doing this at Netflix for launching servers, and I begged them. I said, please, we can't create a DSL, anything but a DSL. Please, just use YAML. Honestly, I hate Norwegians too. Let's just use YAML. Let's just use it. We don't even need it. Just that's it. I don't care. And they actually ended up choosing something different. Hey, trust me, you know what? YAML is better than your own DSL with error handling plus equals one plus little scripting calls, okay? Anything's better. Build.zig. I'd rather use build.zig. First off, this was in like 2015, okay? We have a DSL, no error handling. The worst thing. It is every single time. And I'm sure all of you guys, I know you guys feel this because I feel it too. It's always the worst. Let's see, hold on. Because they have forced my hand. When the landing page of this dumpster fire of the platform loads so slowly, my browser tries to kill it because it appears to be stuck. They have left me no choice. There will come the day when I will dare look at their stupid JavaScript to see how they managed to make the main thread stuck during a request. How do you do that? That's actually a really good question. How did you peg the thread to make Chrome think it's dying? It's genuinely impressive. There's no way they have async, false, and jQuery. There's no way they're doing a blocking JavaScript. But the day is nowhere in sight. My sanity has not gone down low enough. I don't yet want to see the nightmares beyond mortal comprehension that hide in those pesky files. Have they implemented their request using XML HTTP request? Are they unpacking the data so slowly it blocks the main thread? Did someone do the classic sleep 1000 on every page so they can speed up the application when the manager asks for a speed improvement? I don't want to know. What I can tell you is that this is what the page load looks like. Damn. Serial, a little bit of concurrency, serial, a lot of serial, a little bit of serial, some amount of concurrency, some more serial, who knows what for 4 seconds, more. I assume this is when it loads. It is actually a minute, by the way. That's crazy. Yes, almost 50,000 milliseconds for a page that only contains text. In addition, I have seen jQuery 3.5 being loaded among the thousands of other dependencies. To complete a single page load, it takes 153 requests and a total of 16 megabytes of data to be transferred. How? Or better yet, why? Are the questions that have to be answered by the big brains that designed this thing. It's kind of impressive. I mean, we have to take a second and just think, like, somehow they got to this point thinking it was a good idea. Like that or they're being malicious, right? They're genuinely being evil. There's only two options here. And I always, I try to attribute ignorance instead of malice. In some sense, I can't blame the person. When I was at Netflix, we're going to do a little when I was at Netflix story here, okay? So when I was at Netflix, I was tasked with making the application a little bit nicer, and I noticed that we used Lodash, and we didn't just use any version of Lodash, we used the whole damn Lodash, and it'd bring in lots and lots of kilobytes, and the only thing we used was merge. So I thought, yo, son, I could write merge. Merge ain't that hard, right? So I wrote the 150 lines of code that required to write merge, called it a day, removed Lodash. Easy peasy. Then I saw we have Ramda, and we used Ramda, I forget which way it goes. We used Ramda just for one part of our code to do curring, right? To do literally to get some sort of efficiency gain, apparently, over being able to just have like direct calls, like a Ramda apply to, which does like 2 arguments intentionally. So I was like, all right, I could remove this too. So I removed this. I'm like, bada bing, bada boom. This isn't too hard. I'm making moves. I removed like 50, 60 kilobytes from the downloaded code base of just shit we didn't need for very, very easy wins, and now we control it. Within like a week and a half, we had Ramda back because somebody wanted like Ramda, because somebody wanted like an apply 3, despite the fact that I wrote apply 2. Right? I wrote apply to, which is not hard. Apply to is literally just function A, takes argument A, return function that calls inner function AB. It's like not hard at all, but somehow it came back. Within like a month, Lodash was back for some other function. I'm like, dog, okay, we can do this. We're engineers around here. How the hell did I spend 2 weeks trying to figure out every last little place we use these things and make sure everything still works and actually do an A/B test to make sure I didn't break anything that I was unaware of, and then to release this all for just a little bit while longer? They just come back. Programmers will do anything. Okay, this is going to be a hot take. This is going to be a scorching take. It does appear that programmers will try to do anything but program. Is it really that hard? Because remember, when I worked, I was on TV. This is an embedded device. We have limited memory. There was a serious problem with OOMs in the field. Like, memory was very important. Remember, strings, if there's a single UTF-8 character in a string that's not ASCII, your string will then be 16 bytes per character, or 16 bits per character instead of 8. Like, we had to strip special characters. We had to make sure things really did work, because of just the danger that is JavaScript in engineering, just so somebody can install effing Lodash and Ramda. And it's because, like, I want to be functional. It's like, yo, dog, you don't have to be functional, okay? Just use a bind, take that L, because you're not taking the memory, okay? It's not that bad. Just bind. Just bind it. Just bind it. You see, like a boss, Ramdi's, well, you have to use a dynamic language. The reason why you have to use a dynamic language is that you have to be able to update the UI without updating the television platform. Because television platform, you can't just easily update that. But you can really update a scripting language. So you have Lua, MicroPython, and JavaScript. They tried Lua, and Lua back 15 years ago was just not fast enough to really do a good UI, at least when they first did it. So they chose JavaScript 15 years ago and JS Core. Now, was that the best way to do things? Well, you can't undo it. I think Lua could have been better. I think they probably could have taken some time to make Lua awesome. But it is what it is, right? You can't go in the past. You can't go in the past, right? And plus, by having Lua, I think people would have just wrote less code. Because you can't be clever in Lua. Like, you cannot be clever in Lua. So therefore, you have to write stupid code. So therefore, you just write less code. And I think that that's really good. Just saying. According to my colleagues who have been working on this product for years, it has been getting slower over time. How? You load text. You fucking imbeciles. You know, when you see how the sausage is made, you realize how upsetting it is. You do. Anybody here that hasn't worked at like a Fortune 500 company, you know, the echelon, the one that pays the engineers the best, the peak of the peak, the top of the top, the tippity of the toppity, you get there and you realize, man, this sausage, this ain't pretty how they make the sausage around here. It is not good. The fragility of everything. That's a good way to put it. Honestly, that's a good way to put it. And Casey Moratori has some great rants on this one. Have the React Andes eaten what is left of your brain? This, by the way, I don't know who this author is, but thank you for using the term React Andes. This is great. I actually like React Andes as just the general person who does not think of anything and just uses what they're familiar with despite the problem begging them not to use it. Right? Even when the problem's just like, yo, you're displaying some text with some columns. Whatever you do, just use grid layout. Like, that's it. Somehow you get Uno CSS and Tailwind because two people disagreed. You have React. You have an HTMX endpoint because somebody likes me. Nobody knows why that's happening. You end up with like 18 dependencies, everybody doing their own thing. All right? Or have they passed this project the least paid team they have in India, giving them no direction or motivation to try and call it a day? At least their custom language is good, right? Of course not. Of course, it's never good, by the way. If you have a custom language, it will be the death of you. Just so you know, this is the worst choice you can make as a company, generally speaking. Of course not. If you've ever taken a programming language course, you know compilers/transpilers are hard to build and require continuous effort from highly skilled engineers to keep running. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think anyone over the course of a weekend can build like a toy language, and even if you get full time, you could make the language pretty good. I think sometimes compilers get kind of put onto this like shelf of really and like this is where the smartest people exist, even though there are some of the smartest people ever that exist there. Not arguing that. But there's kind of this shelf where it's like, this is the smart people, everybody else is the dumb people. And it's just like, that's not true. Okay? It's not true. It's not true. I mean, someone made Haskell, right? So it should make you feel better. Now imagine what a university-level side project programming language would look like. And tell me, is it good? I know Haskell mentioned, let's go. If you don't like any of the nice-to-have features of any programming language, then yes, it's kind of nice. You lack features such as lazy evaluation for conditional statements, a competent HTTP client, a coherent syntax, a sane way of handling errors, constants. Damn, shots fired. A good way of interacting with a database, or anything above simple functions for some ifs, fors, and do-untils. Yes, do-untils, let's go. Yes, you are not tripping do-untils. Dude, by the way, do-untils are, it's the inverse of the Lord's loop. So the Lord's loop is a do-while, which is a very sane construct, I think, for the human brain. I want to do this thing until this thing is done. A do-until is, I want to do this thing until this statement is true. Do-untils are the devil's loop. Okay? It's we need Christianity inside this language immediately. This is terrible. Do-untils are the worst. They are actually the worst. Yes, you are not tripping do-untils like baby's first loop in assembly. Let's see. I mentioned error handling in HTTP there for a second, and those two are incredibly bad. It leaves a realm of stupidity and becomes malice. Errors are particularly interesting. You have no try-catch mechanism, nor the functional maybe thing Haskell people are on about, nor errors as values like in Go. No, some functions simply return a Boolean. If true, then your function had an error. What error, you might ask? Who knows? There must be an error no, right? There must be an error no. The error acts like a quantum particle. You can know it happened, but you cannot know its details. If this boolean is left unassigned to a variable, then an error message is pushed to the screen in a modal, stopping all execution of the current call stack. Yes, dear reader, the underpaid Indians who developed the hellhole managed to make the first quantum programming language. They didn't need fancy billion-dollar superconductors cooled to close to absolute zero, just pure bad design. That is a crazy programming language to think that if you don't assign a Boolean variable, it's able to launch a modal. This article is a bit of a. I can't tell if it's abusing or actually pointing to something that's really happening. That actually this is what Microsoft is actually doing. Oh shit, you're the author of this blog? Well, hey, damn, I feel bad for you. Well, it's a server-side rendered language. So it's like PHP? Just so I understand, is it like PHP? It needs to push a fucking error to the client. The client catches this and makes a modal. So it's like PHP, kind of. Our condolences, author. PHP plus alert. HTTP has caused me a different set of nightmares, even though I am network engineer, according to my university diploma, who has designed my own stupid networking protocol over WebRTC. Nice. So that's kind of exciting. Might check that out and continue to do so for my master's degree. Have made my own HTTP client and server in C from pure TCP and Malice. Yeah, that's good. Obvious, easy trick. Every single registered nurse, you got to throw a little zero delimiter. Boom. It makes parsing so easy. Makes parsing so dang easy. Firstly, seeing what you did wrong is an entire adventure because the HTTP client wraps everything in nonsense request and response objects that get out of scope very fast and are very tedious to serialize to observe them. Yes, another quantum mechanism. This makes every request more similar to pulling the lever on a slot machine than a science because the most reliable way to craft a request is by moving bits of code around until you stop getting errors. Weird. So you have no observability? Why, Caboose? I don't know. Why would they do this. Secondly, the properties on said objects change wildly while you are not touching them. In one case that has annoyed me profusely is the content headers. Let's say you want to send JSON to an API and you want to use application JSON content type. Seems like a very sane way to send JSON content. To do that, you get the headers, set them appropriately, and then serialize JSON and assign it to the request body. You just caused a wild change because you were stupid and serialized your JSON object before assigning it to the body of your content type header has just changed to string. This is not documented anywhere. You just have to learn using trial and error. Ooh, that's bad. That's real bad, but this is very classic. This is truly this is the thing that people do where this is like the all good intentions, all good programming default magic goes to hell, right? You're just like, somebody's going to assign a string to this body. They're probably wanting to use application text. And so it's like you're doing them a solid because you just made some text. But that's not a solid. It's not. In fact, it's a bad solid. It's a bad one. At least they didn't change it to application HTML. I mean, that's pretty nice. The list of complaints can go on forever, but unlike said quantum programming language, my typing cannot yet explore the infinite space of complaints and write them in a finite time. So we must move on. Tooling. While my complaints from our previous chapters are somewhat minor and could be ignored, the tooling this language platform offers is offensive to me on a deep spiritual level. Is it worse than Webpack, though? On a scale of 0 to Webpack, how bad is the tooling? That's the question we need answered right now. Because there is new levels of hell that is Webpack. Oh, Grunt? 0 to Grunt? Shit, I missed. How bad is it? Probably a 5? Oof. I am blessed to have never used Webpack. Okay. Webpack is the only open source library that got super popular that somehow was actually the worst thing that I've ever used in my lifetime. Nothing is worse than Webpack. Nothing is actually worse than Webpack. Okay, I'm sure that's not true. Have you ever done a large grunt project? A large grunt project it can be pretty awful because it is a lot of configuration and then just custom named plugins running amok. Webpack is the best. Yeoman. I forgot all about Yeoman. Let's start with the LSP. Firstly, because Microsoft is allergic to sharing with others. If you work on this stupid language, you must use VS Code, an editor that has become increasingly more annoying as I have started learning Vim these past months. Yeah. So a lot of the shortcuts aren't quite Vim. So but you can embed NeoVim. So hey, To make it better, you can embed NeoVim. So that can make things a lot better. And have used the JetBrains for the rest of my professional career. But VS Code can be made to feel acceptable. What can't is the LSP that is so incredibly stupid it must be a long-running joke. It takes 5 minutes to start. That's impressive. Maybe it recompiles the Rust binary every time you start it. Like, that's the only thing I can think of. If you go too fast, it becomes confused and needs a restarting. Its caching doesn't work. It lies about function definitions and sometimes just makes up an error that don't exist about code that has been deleted minutes ago. Ziggs does that one too. Ziggs LSP does that too, and I often just LSP restart. LSP uses Lodash. Classic right there. How did the company that fucking invented the language server protocol fail so hard at making a language server for its special domain language is beyond me. This is something very, very special here, which just goes to show. It's the same reason here. Think about it this way. Twitch has never created an organic stream of its own that is popular. Think about that for a second. Twitch doesn't understand Twitch. They don't. There's no one that just, like, there's no product manager that works at Twitch that's like, yo, dog, I stream to, even like, I stream to like 500 people. Yeah, I'm pretty good at it. DJ Clancy is the first person that's trying, that's doing okay, but he's also riding on the laurels of him being CEO of Twitch, right? Right, I mean, there's at least some level of W there, right? That just comes in no matter what. Yeah, I've watched some of DJ Clancy's. Theo did it, but Theo doesn't work at Twitch. Theo don't work at Twitch, dog. Theo worked at Twitch, stopped working at Twitch, started streaming. Melky Erasure? Melky does, okay, that's fair. Melky was streaming before. Melky actually is, to be fair, I said product manager. Okay, I said product manager. Melky works on the AI infrastructure. All right. He has no say over the product at all. He has none. Okay. Aiden is another engineer working on the Go side of things. He also does not have any, I believe he doesn't have any say on the product side. So I was saying product manager. I was specifically talking about like a project manager, someone that could direct the product that has some idea of it. Twitch does not understand its own product. People who are deciding how the product should behave do not actually understand the product. So does this happen? It happens more frequently than you realize. Maybe that is good. No awful changes. I don't think it is good. I think to be really good at a product, because you got to remember, Twitch is made up of two products. The viewer side, I think the viewer side, they understand. I think they do pretty good on the viewer side. And then the streamer side. And the streamer side just really struggles, right? They really, really struggle. Anyways, finally, the act that managed to annoy me so hard, I am sitting here at 2 in the morning furiously writing this article, updating your applications. Our team seems to be suffering from success right now. We have about 5 applications released on the App Store associated with this platform and about 20 to 30 companies that use and pay for our applications. Generally, that would be good. Wow, 20 to 30 companies. Big Microsoft W right there. But when we release an update to one of our applications, we need to manually go to every one of our clients and press a magical update button. Otherwise, those updates will be forever scheduled for updating. At the start, I am told this was a quick job, but seeing the growing number of clients and the slowing of their services, it has started taking longer and longer. These updates must be made, by the way, during off hours, because if done while someone is working, everything will go down in flames, or so I'm told. Well, yeah, it sounds like because you're using a server-side language and you're updating it, I mean, that's going to be a really hard problem. That's a really, like, mobile is the worst when it comes to servers, because you kind of have to have like a server per mobile version. Like, there's no getting around that because not everybody updates, right? Not everybody updates unless if you force updates every single time. The viewer side, this is actually a good point. The viewer side is really what Twitch is. The streamer side is just a means to an end. I think you're right on that. The fact that Twitch is now just really starting to lean into their own alert system shows me that they're at least starting to think about things that streamers could want. To stop this time waster, I was tasked with finding some solution to this problem. Blissfully, I didn't have to do a Rabbit R1 and use web testing library for automatons, because the big brain at Microsoft HQ made an API. But I swear to God, they have tasked some brain dead intern with implementing it because it is the biggest piece of shit I've ever seen. Poor Rabbit R1 catching strays, but Rabbit R1 deserves every last one of the strays. Also, we'll get to it later. We're going to get to it later. I can feel myself wanting to ADHD real hard on the Friends latest update. Ooh, the Friends latest update is so good. Firstly, I need to go through the authentication step for every single client I want to interact with and receive a different auth token. Nice. Safety. Everyone gets that OAuth too. Let's see. Doing an update requires me to do about 5 different other requests to gather the data required to tell the app to update itself. I think they did the TCP server by hand because randomly it seems that it doesn't let go of my TCP socket even after it finishes sending the data. Interesting. I wonder, is this, do you have to, I mean, is the update script in its own language? Because often, closing sockets is a big requirement. I cannot tell you how many times I've crashed a process with a socket open and then not be able to connect to that socket again for like 3 minutes as my operating system's like, nope, too bad, can't use that. No, it's just an API that I hook into with Go. Are you sure you're closing the socket? It's a classic blunder. I'm not trying to say you're not doing it, but it's a classic blunder. I've made that blunder many a times. It is slower than I thought possible. Gathering about 10K of JSON data about the environments and updates that need to be done on them takes somewhere between 20 seconds to 2 minutes. How? I don't know, Microsoft Magic or something. You forgot the trademark. It is so slow that even having the request maximally paralyzed, each request sits on its own thread. It still can take between 1 to 40 seconds to gather all the data. Possibly the edge function that servers me, more likely an underpaid Indian man, needs to take a smoke breaks, or the sharks are nibbling at the internet cables to the underwater Azure servers. Conclusion. I want to end with a little story from one client meeting I have observed. The client, a very modern factory from my city, excitedly tries the demo environment we have prepared for them as they are about to sign their soul to Azure gods. They can observe the excitement drain from the owner's faces as every single interaction he has with the application takes just a bit too long, and he receives more cryptic information about what the form didn't like about his inputs. At the end of the meeting, he asked one of the consultants who guided him through the demo, "Is this how slow it always is?" To which my colleague lied and said, "No, it seems to be a bit slower today," and saved the contract from being severed right there on the spot. Legally dubious. Yeah, I mean that's actually a huge legal thingy right there. That's a big one. You can't be doing that. If this is the effect of if you actually know that that's not true, that can get you in some pretty big trouble there. Is this the effect of a multi-billion-dollar company that can effectively spend infinite money on engineering has on a customer? Then this industry is truly rotten to its core. To its very core. Microsoft, in its infinite wisdom, adds ChatGPTs in every corner of their applications, hoping the customers are stupid enough not to smell the putrid stench that emanates from their applications. One thing that offends me most is that you can see the genius in some places. Under all the garbage, you can see that some competent person tried their best, but no matter how much effort they invested, it was ultimately impossible to fix the mountain of shit that stands before them. That should be a sin. I can only imagine the torment of the few good people who tried to make everything better, to give their customers a good product, but were stopped by incompetence of their management and peers. I tend to take a less negative approach to things, okay? What I personally have found in all of my years of incompetence, including Ramda and Lodash coming back in, is that often X is the thing that someone needs to solve. And they're given a timeline in which is pretty tight or difficult. And they make concessions because to fix the previous thing would take a little bit too long. So maybe it starts off with one just, in their little tower of bricks, maybe just one of them is a bit crooked, right? And this timeline just takes a little too much for them to be able to really actually nail this. So what do? Well, they kind of chip away and they create another brick that's a little bit small enough to be able to fit, and then they start putting another one. I know it's supposed to be off kilter. Don't worry about it. And so they kind of put in this little hack, right? And then the next person comes along and they're like, crap, well, I don't have time to fix this either. So I just kind of got to put this right in here because the other person behind me didn't off-center the bricks. So I can start off-centering it now. And so then they start off-centering their bricks, right? And it's just like, it's a hack that's been put on a hack that's been put on a hack. And it's not really any one person's fault. Rarely. I've been on products that it's genuinely one person's fault, right? Or it just slowly snowballs out of control under their own control, and they just let it go to shit, right? I've seen it. I've seen that happen. But that's a rarity. To me, this is just, all this is just any product that's over 3 years old. Every year, there's just tons of little concessions that add up. And it's not that the person doing it is malicious or even incompetent. They simply just didn't have the time or the emotional energy it takes to do that. Feels bad. And this is why rewrites happen. I think this is also why rewrites are more frequent these days. And I would argue that the cost of a rewrite is much greater than building software better the first time. But I think this is the only way in our world in which everything has moved fast, because moving fast is the best thing. We could rewrite this later, right? We could rewrite this later. Not a big deal. We'll just get this done. We'll just do this later. I don't think long-term it pays off well, but I think people use it as like a mechanism to get through. Hey, the name? Can't even draw a straight line. Shut up, Bisco. First off, this was a pretty incredible straight line, okay, for freestyling it. Okay, that was for how far zoomed out I was. I wasn't all like nice and okay. That was more straight. That was more straight. Okay, yes. All right. I'm not fully the shroud of straight line drawing, but I'm trying. Okay, Jen.